There seem to be a lot of similarities here between Ohio Medicaid fraud and the fraud that we saw in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's the same people. They all have relatives in both places and they move back and forth.
Congressional investigators have discovered a multi-state fraud network run by career criminals who allegedly start fake daycares in places nobody's looking into, break every law imaginable, and then do it again. But while the schemes of these crooks are now being blown wide open all across America, the politicians at the top still think it's a good idea to run for re-election.
Okay, let's talk about Ilhan Omar. She's officially filed for re-election. She wrote, filed for re-election, excited to continue representing the incredible people of Minnesota's 5th District. This comes, of course, as she continues to face criticism over potential allegations linking her to individuals connected to Minnesota's massive fraud scandal.
There's hundreds of millions of dollars of illegal profits being made with social adult daycare centers. You've probably never heard of a social adult daycare center. They're popping up all over the place, in fact, doubling the amount of money they're making every few months. What's going on?
There's one guy, he racked up $30,000 in tax debts in Columbus running this daycare center and not paying his taxes. So then he started a home health care company in Minnesota, billed $35,000 in 1 month, and then dissolved the company.
Filing for re-election. Has she ever heard that line, Gab? Maybe sit this one out, because that is the first thing that I would say to her. Minnesota voters and the American people deserve answers.
You know who doesn't have an affordability problem in America right now? That would be the people stealing from it. Look at this. But what nobody's talking about is there's a major operation going on right now to distract you from all of this so the status quo of crime in this country can continue. Which is why we're seeing riots taking over sanctuary cities. That's right, the foot soldiers of socialism and open borders and fraud are marching on the streets of America, and their goal is to make you think your fellow countrymen are under attack from the very federal government. Industrialized scammers are busy robbing to fund all of this mayhem while empowering politicians to usher in even more of it. And what's wild about this is, on one hand, we're seeing arrests, we're seeing convictions and prosecutions of scammers, but then all of the politicians who are allegedly connected to all of this, they're all running for something. Ilhan Omar's running for re-election. Karen Bass in LA's running for re-election. Gavin Newsom wants to be president. And the reason they can do this is because the king of fraud himself, Governor Walz, was told to take one for the team to protect the industrial scam complex here, which is now circling the wagons around those who are fighting at the national level to keep the entire thing going, claiming that investigations into criminal behavior are illegitimate, creepy, or just made up. Watch this.
It is really disturbing and creepy to have the President of the United States be obsessed with you. I know that he is deflecting from the failures of his presidency.
But that brings us to the real reason we're seeing so many things happen at once. You've got these luxury cars, these luxury homes, these SUVs, and you've got business networks that are popping up all over the country, started by people over here who then move over here and then do it again over here. And how are they getting away with this without political backing? That's what investigators want to know. And once they find out, things could get really bad for the people who've enabled this and covered it up, which is why Tim Walz stepped down. And although we don't know where the money went, it's pretty easy to guess, because who would be out there defending fraudsters and criminals who rob America, stealing from its children and its needy, all to spend their money on luxury vacations and things none of us will ever be able to afford, with operations that are becoming increasingly more obvious. It's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore, like this.
And it just seems to be the family business is billing Medicaid.
Criminal rings. We did a lot of work previously this year on Medicaid fraud in Minnesota. There seem to be a lot of similarities here.
Yeah, it's the same people. They all have relatives in both places and they move back and forth. First of all, I think there was $130 million in cash that transferred from the Columbus airport to the Minnesota airport. And so they're moving basically briefcases of cash.
That's crazy. So not only do we have massive amounts of fraud taking place in Minnesota, but criminals operating there were moving between other states, creating different businesses in other places where nobody was checking, taking money, and in some cases not even paying taxes, and then using that money to pay. It's just, what a nightmare. How is this legal? Well, the good news is it's not, and people are finally getting busted. Watch this.
You got it right. And they're a mother and a daughter, by the way. And they would often pay moms to lie that their children had autism. Well, this is a much bigger problem for the country. These programs, especially in Medicaid, were designed sort of on the honor system. You were asking people to pay for things your family would normally do for you. And so you'd assume they would take advantage of the system once in a while, but it would be very rare. So this is a good example in autism where we've taken an ailment, a tragic condition for many families that they're struggling financially to cope with. And it was supposed to cost $3 million, $4 million, not supposed to cost $400 million.
That's a lot of money. And the crazy thing about this revelation is we're learning that America's piggy bank is accessible on the honor system, and there might be consequences later if the fraud is big enough. What a mess. What a recipe for disaster. And this is why the people connected to these scams like Governor Walz and Representative Omar are so defensive about them. Because even though Tim Walz stepped down, he tried to defend himself for not caring about fraud, stating that Minnesota is a generous state. And oh, we're so generous, there's no guardrails, but that's just so we can help as many people as quickly as possible, which is what Dr. Oz just said. The only difference is somebody realizes that there's a problem with that system, and somebody else thinks that the ends justify the means. Who cares if there's fraud? We helped people, so what? It all evens out. That's the attitude that is gonna bankrupt our country, and which leads to new scams like this next one popping up everywhere.
Healthcare is becoming unaffordable in part because of the amount of fraud that's taking place. I want to tell you a story about what's happening here in Flushing, Queens, New York City. Within a block of this New York City police precinct, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of illegal profits being made with social adult daycare centers. You've probably never heard of a social adult daycare center. They're popping up all over the place, in fact, doubling the amount of money they're making every few months. What's going on? Here's the deal. You get a bunch of seniors who live in a small insular community. They want to hang out together. These are now funded by Medicaid in New York State. And they get together, but unbeknownst to them, there's actually a fraudster running these endeavors.
Wow. So first we learned that one way to rob America by billing the government for stuff you never do is to start one of these daycare centers. We saw so many empty daycare centers all over Minnesota. And now we're seeing the same thing in New York City, which is another place where there are no checks and balances apparently, because you got these adult daycares, these hangouts that are somehow funded by all of America. For what purpose? And as you're about to see, some of these people, they're not even showing up, just like the daycares. What a coincidence.
And they're not all bad, but when they're bad, they can sometimes even bribe the senior. They'll pay them money to lie and pretend that they're coming there every day so they can bill the government, even though they're not coming at all. Once they get them hooked, then they say, okay, I'm going to send you to the pharmacy. You're going to pretend to get a medication that you don't need. Or I'm going to get an x-ray you don't need. Or a treatment that you're not supposed to have. I'll send you something from a durable medical equipment supplier. How about a wheelchair? You don't need it because you can walk, but I'll send it to you anyway. And then they send you a personal care assistant. The number one job now in New York State is a personal care assistant, a home health aide to help you in your home when you don't need it.
Wow, that's insane. So it goes beyond the building that is fraudulently billing the government, and it feeds into all of these other fraudulent little services, medications people don't need, wheelchairs for people who can walk. I mean, and I'm sure there are scammers at the other end of these medical equipment suppliers that are teamed up with places that are gonna funnel them clients who don't even need a wheelchair or don't even need a patient at their pharmacy. There's a network of fraud going on here, and it's deeper than any of us ever knew. And the fact that this is all being done on the honor system is why we've got so many of these places cropping up all over the place. No one's checking, no one can check, and in instances where people are supposed to care and are supposed to check, it seems like they don't want to because they say, hey, we helped someone. Someone went to an adult daycare or somebody went to a daycare, and yeah, there's fraud, but hey, we can't catch everybody. What's the big deal?
I just want to be clear. Your testimony is that there is a large interstate criminal enterprise of fraudsters that are defrauding the federal government in multiple states of potentially billions of dollars. Is that your testimony?
Wow.
And can you give us a sense of the scale of this fraud? We saw it in Minnesota. We're seeing it here. But have you seen it in other places? Or can you give us a sense for either dollar values or the number of people involved, in your opinion?
There's thousands of people involved. I would say the majority of people are either on Medicaid home health care or are providing Medicaid home health care services. They had recently 15,000 people. This nonprofit group, this advocacy group, which is tied to actually founded by a home health care guy. They had 15,000 people come to this party in Ohio, and they bust in all the participants on their Medicaid vans because everybody there has their own Medicaid company.
Interesting. So you have an army of fraudsters that are basically bussing people around so that they can get charged and so that the federal government can pay for it. And this is like a full-time occupation at a time when regular people are having problems putting gas in their cars or buying groceries, right? We've got massive inflation in housing markets in these deep blue cities because they don't build enough houses. We've got massive retail theft rings operating in these places that steal products and force costs up so stores can stay open. You've got people trying to obey the law, but they're just subsidizing criminals at every single turn. And then when they try to sign up for health care, that's extra expensive because there's so many criminals accessing that. The federal government's running out of money. And we've got to ask ourselves a big question here. Who do you think these fraudsters are supporting when it's election time? Do you think they're going to get out there and rally behind a candidate who wants accountability, who wants crackdowns, who wants investigations, or are they going to rally around a candidate who just talks about helping people and just talks about doing the greatest good for the greatest number of people? Of course, we all know the answer to that, and it's this emotional language that is designed to separate hardworking Americans who care about each other from their hard-earned money. But now we're all starting to ask questions like, who's behind this? How deep does this actually go? And will there finally be some consequences?
Okay, let's talk about Ilhan Omar. She's officially filed for re-election, announcing her decision in a brief post on X. She wrote, "Filed for re-election, excited to continue representing the incredible people of Minnesota's 5th District." Okay, this comes, of course, as she continues to face criticism over potential allegations linking her to individuals connected to Minnesota's massive Feeding Our Future fraud scandal, one of the largest fraud cases in US history, as well as questions around whether she married her brother or not.
Yeah,
Caitlin,
people are asking about that.
Filing for re-election, what are her chances?
I think she'll win.
Filing for re-election. Has she ever heard that line, Gab? Maybe sit this one out, because that is the first thing that I would say to her. Minnesota voters and the American people deserve answers to these questions about fraud, where the money's gone, where taxpayer money has gone.
So here's the thing. She very well could win re-election because she's popular nationally, she's popular locally, she may win, she may absorb all of the socialist energy in America because she's a national voice standing against Trump, but she also may be investigated at the exact same time because what she's done allegedly is very serious. If this turns out to be true, there's also massive questions about her rise to riches, which still have not been answered. I have to wonder if the financial disclosures, the revisions on the screen right now would have ever happened if the governor of her state were the vice president, who would be the one in charge. Notice right now, J.D. Vance is investigating all of the fraud across America, and Tim Walz was causing a lot of the fraud in certain parts of America, or at least leading the way. Would he have investigated fraud? I don't know.
Last week, as you know, with the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force led by the vice president, we were witnessing exactly why these two women were able to get away with it. Within the Department of Health, they would ostracize and shut down whistleblowers who were trying to put their hand up and saying, guys, there's something wrong here. At least help me look into the problems. And they'd escort these people out of the building and never let them return to their primary jobs. Well, the number one biller of Botox in the country just went to jail. She billed $25 million for Botox to Medicaid, pretending that it was going to help people with migraines.
That's crazy.
Again, fraudster, coming from a place you could not imagine. And we're catching these folks. But the real question we should be asking ourselves, is this a flaw or is it a feature?
Oh, it's a feature. This system has been designed this way on purpose because it's on the honor system, and people without honor, well, what are they going to do? They're going to defy the honor system because they don't have any, and they're going to steal, and they're going to rob our country, and they're going to enrich themselves, and they're going to enrich people who set up more of these zero guardrails programs that are supposed to help everyone immediately, and who cares if there's fraud because we need help. That's the attitude behind all of this. And what we're talking about here is state-sponsored fraud. We've got elements of the federal government, elected representatives, passing laws, setting all of this up just so that it can be taken advantage of. And then when great people who are hardworking and honest want access to these programs, they're all full, or they're running out of money, or you got to get in line because the adult daycare or the child daycare or whatever is full, and they can't enroll any more beneficiaries because if they do, they think it might bring up a red flag. Meanwhile, nobody actually goes because everyone enrolled in these places are fake. So you have all these places around that claim to help people, nobody's inside, and nobody can go. And now, as you're about to see, the same thing's happening with Obamacare, which is why nobody can afford what's in the Affordable Care Act.
2015, 16, 17, 18, 2020, there were 9 million people on Obamacare. 9 million. Today, it's more than 20 million. Like, what happened? What happened was we completely took the guardrails off. And I know this because I'm working in the agency that actually was told to take the guardrails off. And because there wasn't an earnest desire to keep track of whether you're appropriately on it or not, but more importantly, just get the number to where we all feel good about ourselves, we had massive increases of people joining the program. We believe that 35%, roughly, of the people that are using the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare exchanges, because they've never used the program once, they've never filed a claim, may not be legit.
Wow.
And that actual number may translate to, I don't know, 5-6 million people we could be paying premiums for because they don't have to contribute anything. So they don't even know they're getting it. These are people who have Medicaid, and someone, often a broker, is dishonestly enrolling them on in Affordable Care Act, or they're in 2 states at once getting full insurance paid for by us.
And who gets that money? The insurance companies. That's right. That's why we don't hear them complaining too much about the cost of healthcare. America's paying for it. America doesn't care what the premiums are because you've got people enrolled in these programs. They don't even know they're on it. They're paying money to insurance companies, millions of people all over the place. This is just so crazy. It gets worse. Every single day we learn more about this fraud and all of these scams enabled by our elected representatives. The whole thing just gets worse. It never gets better. Every time they catch somebody, every time they convict somebody, we learn that the fraud's even worse. Now there's multi-state scams going on with fraudsters opening businesses all over the place. And it's almost like at this point, fraud is part of how certain parts of America operate and run themselves, which has us headed on a pathway to bankruptcy. We need to start doing something about this right now. Thank God we are, but this is going to take a long time. This is not the kind of thing that's going to get fixed in 1 year of a few fraudsters getting sent to jail. No, this is going to take a long time. There's so many operations. Look at all the operations that need to be investigated in New York, all of these adult daycares.
But again, I think the American people are demanding answers. We need to hold her accountable. Americans are exhausted by this double standard that comes from Democrats and our representatives.
Totally.
And I think the shift starts now.
Yep, hopefully.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, there's been so much attention on Minnesota and so many questions around how much she knew or didn't know. Same goes for Tim Walz.
Yep.
I mean, they've both at least proven to be completely incompetent.
Who stepped down, by the way.
I want to get your thoughts on...
And the great part is this has been brought to light by just regular tax-paying American citizens, right? The level of fraud, the amount of money that we want to know where it's gone, all of this has been highlighted and brought to life by tax-paying citizens.
Right. When somebody like Nick Shirley can grab a GoPro and go to places and investigate them and find a whole bunch of weird stuff, you know there's a problem because that's something investigators should have caught. That's stuff that Governor Tim Walz would have known about in Minnesota if he would walk down the street. Ilhan Omar as well. There's no way these individuals didn't know what was going on in the state they claim to represent. Unless, of course, they don't actually know what's going on in their own state. But that's impossible when you're taking pictures with these people. That's impossible when everyone's telling you how much good you're doing for the community. Yet the businesses they claim to operate never have anybody inside of them. Like a 10-second investigation at any of these places. All you had to do was sit in front of one of these daycares or these leering centers and just see who comes in and out. And no one's coming in or out. No one's been here all month, but Oh, but they're billing. Oh, they're sending us so many bills to Medicaid and we're just paying, but nobody ever comes in and out like this is so easy to catch. But people didn't want to catch it. And here's why cracking down on fraud is the solution to unaffordability in this country. Check this out.
There's a very strong effort by us. We actually made a rule 2 weeks ago that starts the process. We had tried to do this when we first came into office. A court enjoined us.
Sure.
Did not feel we'd followed appropriate APA guidelines, guidelines, and so we redid it, and now it went back out again. But if you care about the ACA, then you'll want us to take the fraud out. And let me just take a step back. If we want you to go back to work on Medicaid, what's going to happen? You're going to start making money. As you make money, you're going to make enough money. You get above the poverty level. You're going to want to buy an Affordable Care Act product or private industry. Commercial insurers are going to start using it. That's a good thing. We're getting America back up. They're getting into work, getting them into the stratosphere, building prosperity. So we want these programs to work together. But if you've got millions of people, literally, who are getting insurance that they don't want, they don't even know they have it, and we're all paying for it, that's tens of billions of dollars we're throwing away. That increases premiums for everybody. It drives affordability down.
And that's how socialism works. That's how redistribution works. And in this case, America's money is being redistributed not to people who have the greatest need, but to people who are scammers. When the reality here is we need law and order and we need capitalism. That's what's going to bring back affordability to America. You need competition, and you don't have fair competition if you don't have real supply and demand. Right now you have fake demand from scammers that want access to America's money on the honor system, and they're getting it, and that's making all of our lives more expensive. That's why nobody can afford healthcare right now, because we got so many people that are on healthcare that don't even know they're on it or don't even need it, that these insurance companies might have to pay out massive amounts because they've just got so many enrolled individuals. This whole thing is a big disaster. Every single week we're learning something new. Every single week there's another investigation. There's more testimony of how this just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's not like all of this testimony was made up at the last minute. It's not like this is all part of some creepy obsession. No, there needs to be an obsession with stopping criminal activity in your country. That's the job of law and order. That's the job of the federal government. If they're not obsessed with that, then we've got a real problem, especially if it's their goal to enable it. What do you think about that? I'll see you in the next video.